All right, welcome, Beth.
Hello, good, we're here.
Yeah, Aaron is making his way in.
Hello, hello.
There we go.
Hello.
He's here.
All
All
right.
right.
And
Excellent.
sorry
So,
it's a little dark in here. I didn't realize my light back there was out.
all good, all good. So, Aaron meet Beth. Beth meet Aaron. Aaron, thank you for making some
Hello.
time to share what you learned on your journey. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit back and let you guys work it out and see what I can learn in the process.
Cool. And we're recording?
Are you okay with recording?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna be necessary because this is actually a lot of junk. And
Cool.
and it will probably need to do like a question and answer session a little later. So I figured we'd start here. This is kind of big picture stuff. So I can help wrap your mind around what my Lyme specialists and other people kind of taught me what I was going to have to go through to get through it. Okay, so, and this is the first time I've ever really given a lot of this information out. So yeah, a lot of this is going to be my mind just blurting out a lot of stuff. But what I wanted to do is kind of get my head around where you are currently. And so I have a few questions that I just wanted to ask. And the first one being, when did you first start noticing that there was a problem and that you started to investigate what this was? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I went up north and I was walking in the deep woods. That was on the Monday. On Friday, I was exhausted. Saturday and Sunday, I was bedridden with a fever. And then Monday, like a week later from my bite, I was fine. And I wondered why I had this little red rash.
Right.
It was in my groin, so it looked like a triangle. And when I went to urgent care, I thought it was a rash. And they said, look down here. And it's a circle. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't notice it's a circle. So I feel like Monday I got bit. That following weekend I was sick. And so 10 days later I went to the doctor.
Okay. And then and was the doctor able to diagnose it, or when was there a diagnosis of the this is definitely Lyme?
Yeah, so at urgent care, I wasn't home, so it wasn't in my neighborhood. I was with my mother, very far away from home. And so urgent care just said, this really looks like Lyme. I mean, that is a bullseye. And so they put me on antibiotics immediately. And then when I got home, the next day, I think it was, I called my doctor and told him everything and made an appointment, for like 10 days out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the doctor's appointment, 10 days after I had been on antibiotics, they put me on antibiotics for 2 weeks. So on 10 days of antibiotics, they gave me the blood work test, and it said, there was the 2 different types of Lyme words. This is all new to me, so I don't know what I'm talking about. And so one said positive, one said negative.
So was that talking about the bacteria, the Barella, or you're not quite sure on that? Because I don't have like a clinical understanding of Lyme, and so I never got officially tested. I was tested a little differently. So I don't know that test, but it does sound like that was the tick version, because there's actually I'm pretty aware now that there's 2 versions of Lyme. And so and the way it works is that the Lyme bug was a bioweapon from Plum Island, And in Plum Island, they do lots of crazy testing. And one of the things they discovered is that ticks are the easiest way to infect an army population. And so they were working on producing something that would infect an army population quickly. And in the 60s, 40s, through it was going on in the 40s and 50s, and I think in the early 60s, the area around Plum started to realize what was going on and started to try to get them shut down. Then they said, well, don't worry, this will never get out. We're just testing this as a future outcome. And it did get out, and it spread like crazy because they used a deer tick, what's it called? North Star tick or something like that. I just went over this information a little bit just to refresh myself, and it seeks out its prey instead of just hanging on a piece of grass and waiting for its prey to come by. It'll actually seek it out. It has eyes, can smell. But that's what it sounds like, is that, this is still a lot of controversy, but today I'll have tons of controversy for you, is that we just live in a different world than we realize. But that's kind of what I discovered is one side of it. Now, what I think that they did is they used a virus from a corpse and then manipulated that or used whatever they call it in bioengineering, where they make it a stronger bacteria. But that's why there's a second form of Lyme, which is Lyme that actually comes from cadaver bones. So people who have cadaver bones in their jaw have a potential for leaking Borrelia bacteria as well. Anyway, so
You mean the mandibular?
the what?
The mandibular jawbone?
Well, anytime they put an implant in your mouth, a lot of times they'll use a tiny bit of cadaver bone to fill in the space. And that cadaver bone is often infected with Borrelia.
Oh, because I have that in my mouth.
Yeah. Which we're going to get into teeth. Teeth are a huge part of this. And then where are you in your Lyme process as far as what you've tried thus far?
So I did the 2 weeks. So I got bit on July 10th. And did the 2 weeks of antibiotics. Someone said get teasel. So I have the teasel root extract. And every now and then, like maybe once a week, I get nauseous. I get really like, at first, when that first happened to me, I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna throw up. Where do I go? But I realized that must just be like a symptom, because it's just this like, oh, nauseous feeling. And then when I take the teasel, that helps settle that down. And I am noticing a little arthritis throughout the body. And I forgot what my other symptom was. So I am taking MMS. I think that's what it's called. And that helps a lot. So I'm just like punting, trying this and trying that to see what can, and I don't even know the language. Can it be put in remission?
Right. And that's what happens, is that because of the nature of that bug, and that it's actually a bug that's found on a corpse, that it bores into the cartilage of our body, and then it can protect itself with a layer. I forget what it's. I'm sorry, it's been so long. It's actually been. I've healed myself for about 5 years, so a couple of the technical names are going to get me today. But it'll basically shield itself with a biofilm. I forget what it is, if it's protein or how it does it, but it'll hide from most of your antibiotics. And so
I've heard.
You could kill your body with antibiotics. It's not going to work because for two reasons. It hides in the cartilage and it protects itself with that biofilm. So, okay. And then what? So it hasn't been an extremely long time. Was this July of this year?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But it came on pretty strong. Like, what's your symptoms?
So Monday I got bit, and Friday of that same week I was exhausted and I didn't know why. So I kept trying to just live my life through the exhaustion. And then Saturday and Sunday, I had a fever and I slept. I slept Saturday and Sunday with a fever. And then I was fine. 1 week later, I felt fine. But I wondered why I had this red mark on me, and I thought it was fungus. And 10 days later, when I went to urgent care, they're like, no, that doesn't look like fungus. That rash is a circle. And I'm hairy down in my groin area. So I didn't see the other part of the redness. I didn't see that it was actually a circle. I just saw the little part that wasn't under my hair. So I thought it was fungus. And yeah, when they said, and I saw, oh, that is a circle. So, then they just assumed that it was Lymes. And I'm like, yeah, I was crawling through the deep woods up north unprotected.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times people don't even necessarily know where it came from. Like that was kind of me. My specialist seems to think that I got it another way and that I've had it most of my life. Whereas I kind of thought that it might have happened when I spent time in the north. But my Lyme specialist was a little different, and she's one of the best in the country. She actually had MS and was bedridden. She was a doctor with MS and was in a horrible state. So she taught herself another doctorate degree and then eventually healed herself of MS and now speaks all over the country about this. And
Yeah.
And that's what they all say is that the Borrelia bacteria gets into the into the nervous system, finds its way into the brain, and then a lot of people who had Lyme earlier on, or this other, different distinction of Lyme, then end up with a neurological disease later, like MS, like Parkinson's. And in fact, there's a pathologist who says that absolutely every cadaver that he's cut into that had MS, Parkinson's, all of the Alzheimer's, all of those brain diseases that you think of had a component of that bacteria.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I'm starting to sometimes wonder, is it getting into my neurological? Sometimes that brain doesn't work like it used to.
right. Well, it's early. It's really early on, so that's a good sign, and it may cause us to be able to look at this a little differently because you have the version that's right in front of your face instead of the other one. Because when it comes from, well, we'll talk about the teeth in a minute. Oftentimes when it comes from the teeth, people don't realize it, and it just slowly builds. So we're 10 years into that being in them before they really start seeing, huge signs, and then they just can't seem to lick it, and then they develop all these allergies. And kind of what happened with me, I developed all these allergies, and then I ended up having a really hard time digesting protein, and it just kind of got worse and worse over about a 5-year period. And then, of course, radiation, the whole Wi-Fi, electrical grid, all of that kind of intensifies it. So it's a really weird thing, and you know, in some ways, there's a lot of conspiracy that talks about how these were that it was actually this, you know, plan of the government that then just got loose in the environment and they can't really deal with it. And I know I don't really need to know the conspiracy part of it too much because I do believe my Lyme specialist that there's several different ways that we can get it in our body. Okay, so the other questions I have, and we'll just kind of run through them. You did say that you think you had, or that you had some of the cadaver bone. Do you have implants?
I don't know, because when I had my jaw surgery, I had an underbite and they took the mandibular bone and they just said they cut it in half and slid it forward, and then I have 3 screws. So they tell me they added bone to the surgery. Boy, and that was such a long time ago. So yeah, so I don't know, you know, what they
So then
do when
you do have metal in there still?
I have 3 titanium screws.
Okay, okay. And then do you have any other metal? Do you have silver fillings? Do you have root canals?
I had all my silver fillings taken out, and I have had 2 root canals.
Okay, and the root canals are still in there?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and then what about and I'm certainly not trying to get too personal, but what about prescription drugs? Are you on a lot of them, or are you on or if you could tell me any prescription drugs that you take daily?
I am prescription free, no medication.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's great. And then what about scars? Do you have any unhealed scars?
Oh yeah, I do have a scar from a surgery,
And is
but
it,
it's
you know,
it's healed.
sometimes they'll look, oh, it is healed?
Oh yeah, because that was in 1990.
Okay, okay. Because sometimes people, especially depending on how long they've been going through this, they'll have scars that just won't heal. You know, I mean, they're
Oh,
they're
why?
close and they look healed, but they call them keloids. You know, they have that ugly looking scar quality, but then it takes like 10 years for that keloid to go down, and that's a body having trouble healing.
Now that's interesting, because when I do get a wound, it does take my body a long time for it to heal up, and then I do get a little, yeah, like I got a bumblebee bite, and the little, I mean, that wasn't blood or anything, but that didn't heal. I would think that little dot would go away. But thank goodness I usually don't get cuts or anything. But when I do, it does take them a long time to heal.
Right, right. Okay. And then I mean, it sounds like you have a decently healthy diet, or you know, no soda drink, no sodas, or you know, what is that like for you?
Yeah, so my diet is pretty restricted because I do have a hard time digesting. So I don't do dairy, I do gluten, and try to stay away from sugars. So I always say I'm a vegan that eats meat.
And then, okay, and so how long have you had trouble digesting?
20 some years.
Dang. So is there something else going on? Well, I mean, anyway.
If I had to guess, I would probably just say childhood trauma that my insides haven't released.
Because I mean, we know that you got a tick bite, and we know that you developed Lyme a little while ago. But I mean, the issues we're discussing sounds like that you've been having a body issue for a while, so this stuff will kind of help in both realms. Because
I hope so.
what I've really got here is something that heals the body no matter what you've got, and especially if you have chronic problems. Because what the Gerson therapy and my Lyme specialist taught me was that all sickness is the same sickness. The liver gets weak, the liver can't fight the problem, and then so it digresses into several different stages. The last one being cancer, but the stage before that is you know, the kind of chronic conditions that we can't get rid of, which it sounds like you're kind of dealing with. But I was trying to find out, how long ago did the metal go in the jaw?
That was 2000.
Okay, now 2000. So were you digesting well at that time?
Not really.
Okay. And then what about the root canals? How long have they been?
Oh, well, boy, one was from probably 1980 something, and then the other one was probably around that same period, maybe 2002 or something.
Okay. Okay, well, we're gonna go through it. It's a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna try to show you the concept of the healing, and then you can very easily do this on your own with probably a follow-up or two, just questions. But this is a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm just gonna I'm gonna give you the whole thing, because I learned to pull out of that old body and not have to be victimized by these problems that I was running into. And they weren't huge, but they were taking me down quicker than I wanted. And I wanted to live a lot longer. And so I just dug into this research and came up with this process that I still use today. It's how I'll live my life, mostly because I still have metal in my body, which I won't be able to get out. And I know I have the Barella. And so therefore I have to stay like this, but I get to look and feel great. I just have to do some of these things pretty much all the time. So I'm not great at any of this stuff. But I'm gonna share the screen and we're gonna go through this.
Well, good, Josh. I'm glad you're recording this.
Okay. Hey, can you let me share the screen, Josh?
Yep, you got it. Let me give you host permissions. Let's see here. Make host. Bingo, you're on.
There you go. Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I always start here because this is really where I started with it. I didn't really start healing until I got into the Course in Miracles.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is where it all began for me. I had to learn that I was projecting all of this, and that to heal, I had to recognize that I was going to heal with God, and by doing my work with God, then the body was going to just reflect the image that I became. And so I believe that all healing starts with the mind. And I believe that true healing is in forgiveness, in the fact that when we wake up in the morning, we wake up into another dream. And ultimately, we are still with God and we never left, but we're living a dream where we kind of ask for an experience of what it would feel like if we weren't with God. And that's why God is so hidden. That's why God is so secret. That's why it's so hard to define him. is that we're having this strange dream where we're believing that God can't be found. And what happens is we allow our judgments to cloud our true vision. And what forgiveness does is it erases our judgments. And it erases parts of the dream that we do not need to go through. So this is a dream and you will wake up. What I always do is anytime I find myself in an uncomfortable situation, I do a 4-part metaphysical formula. I always say, I'm having a dream. I forgive this situation in this time, but I also forgive myself for having projected it. And I hand the entire situation over to the Holy Spirit's strength. Now that comes right out of Gary Renard's Disappear into the Universe. It is truly the only powerful thing there is. Because you live a dream, and the literal purpose is that one day you will wake up from this dream, and that's how you did it. The Course in Miracles is a required course. Your time in which you take it is up to you. And in fact, Christ has through eternity for you to figure this out. But by starting to do that process early on will help anything heal, because what happens is you erase all of these trials and tribulation you think you need to go through, and you get to see the clarity of God. And you do that by this quantum forgiveness opportunity that is the Course in Miracles. So I always start there. When you're healing through any of this stuff, just remember that you are still with God, and that you're going to use these magic potions to heal. But the real reason that you're healing is that you understand who you are. Okay. So now when we're dealing with the body, on the body, in this projection, we have to work with the body. The body's what we've got, but we have to start to see the body as an automobile instead of who you are. You are with God. You are God. You are the sonship of Christ. But here you're playing the part of this body, and so you have to maintain it. You have to put oil in it. You have to do these things with your car. You also have to do these things with your body. All bodies work the same way. So all sicknesses are levels of the one illness. And what we do is we have a loss of voltage. Our liver is our battery. And when we lose voltage, then we are unable to heal. So any of the illnesses, any of the chronic illnesses that you're suffering from arthritis to low digestion to allergies, anything that sticks with you are ultimately from gaining too low of a voltage in the body, because what happens is all cells have to amp up to what we would consider -20 to run efficiently. If they start to get sick, then they basically want to amp up to -50, which is their healing voltage. Often what happens is that we've lived a life that's not healthy because society is not making it easy on us, and we don't have enough power in our battery pack to allow these cells to jump up into that -50. And when they can't, then they'll stay in a chronic illness state for quite a while. And then what happens, and this is why I have Jerry Tennant down here as healing his voltage, because his book kind of describes how as your amperage drops, you go through these different stages of sickness. And then, because ultimately what your body's doing is giving up, and it will create the bugs it needs to eventually take itself down, is his theory. And it's also the Gerson therapy as well, that you have all the bugs that you'll ever need inside your body. As you drop in voltage, they start to multiply, or they change, however you want to look at it. That's what's kind of going on in the system. And so then to heal is to replace the voltage. What keeps the battery from being able to have a full voltage is where we're leaking energy. Our liver gets loses energy and either gets filled up with toxins, or and a lot of times with root canals, with root canals and with silver fillings, especially if you had silver fillings for a long time and then you finally got rid of them. What they do is your tooth is a cap on one end of your nerve, and on the other end of that nerve is a body part, an organ. So there's a tooth that it has a direct line to, on the other side of that nerve is actually your spleen. Now the other side of another nerve is your liver, and so on and so forth. And that's a Chinese system that that works here. But so then what happens is if you drill a hole in your tooth and then put a silver filling or a root canal, then what happens is you leak those negative ions all day long. And so if you've had silver fillings for 5, 10, 20 years, then you're leaking your life energy all day long. And depending on how many you had and how much silver to how much mercury they used, because it does two things. So it heats up the mercury, and so you're sifting, you're just breathing mercury vapor all day long. And depending on how powerful that charge is, if they've added a little more mercury than they needed to, sometimes it's a pretty hot charge. So in Hal Huggins, who figured this out, he had MS as well, was bedridden, was a dentist, worked with mercury all the time, finally realized that it was the mercury inside his teeth, ripped them all out, and then learned how to rip them out in an appropriate way so that they wouldn't give an autoimmune response. Because if we just go and take our silver fillings out without doing it in a correct way, how Huggins figured out, and sometimes it triggers an autoimmune problem. And then what they'll do, and I had a doctor do this with me because I learned about this and went and had it done the right way, which is that they tested the one that had the highest voltage, because you can take a voltmeter and put it on the end of your tooth, and it'll say, you know, your charge. I think she said my charge was 71 on this tooth right here, and she's like, we're going to start with that quadrant, and then they take it out, and then you come back and you do another quadrant and so forth, so that it doesn't cause this autoimmune process. But so teeth leak negative ions. They also heat up if you've got the mercury fillings and you breathe in that vapor. Now with root canals, what it does is it invites a pretty strong bacteria to flourish in your body. And the idea is that we're not supposed to have dead bone in our system. That's not a healthy thing. And because what the bone does when roots die, they develop these bugs to take it down. And so you're developing bugs you shouldn't have in your body, right? While you have, and then the metal invites that positive ion approach. So it's very what's it called? So when you're putting negative ions into your body, that actually ends up, that's the healthy side of the ion. When you're putting positive ions into the body, that's the negative side. So it's like putting sugar into your body. But when you have metal in your body, it's a constant source for allowing bacterial growth. And then it also will charge when there's an electromagnetic field. It will actually help the electromagnetic field be stronger in that area, and it'll suck the oxygen out of that area, and it'll create an environment for bad bugs. And that's one of the reasons that most of these doctors, especially dentists, who've healed from their own illness, say that we should not have any root canals in our head. We should not have any implants in our head, and certainly no silver fillings. And cadaver bones, because the cadaver bones already have these bugs in them. So a lot of times that ends up being your biggest problem, and that's why it's number one here. Fluoride, you've probably heard of. I have a Berkey filter. I filter all of my fluoride out. The reason I do that is that it will step in the place of iodine, and it will replace iodine, and it will cause your body to degrade really quickly. It's a horrible chemical, and it's a toxic version of that chemical. There's a version that's not as toxic that you can get from well water that isn't as bad, but the stuff they put in your drinking water is horrible. And then so toxins, all the pharmaceuticals, all pesticides, vaccines, and fake estrogens are the same thing. They are fake estrogens, and they weaken your body the same way. And the Gerson therapy, if you have stage 5 cancer, you've had chemo twice, and they've sent you home to die, and you find Gerson therapy, and you go to them and say, please heal me, they'll say, first you have to take care of all your root canals, all your implants. Then you have to get off all your medications, and then you have to make sure there's no antibiotics. So those things are what will cause the body not to be able to heal the fastest, because what they do is they leak your energy. And then some other ones that are a little bit less known is, so what happens is as our energy drops, then all of our cells try to muster up some more courage to make energy, and so they start to take on more salt. Usually there's a balance between salt and potassium within the body, but if the mitochondria are having trouble firing, then they will take on more salt so that they can keep the mitochondria firing. But the problem is that that's a very short-term situation, and if it doesn't correct itself quickly, and if you then are taking in too much of the wrong salt, then it will lead to a lot of fuel that's unused, and that rancid fuel then has to be discarded as toxins. So the wrong salt will definitely increase the amount of fuel that's not being used, because your mitochondria are having trouble using anything. And then, of course, we talk about white sugar, and white sugar is a horrible way to get carbohydrates. And with any kind of illness that we're discussing where we're dropping voltage, we can't do white sugar, we can't do processed foods. And so, right, do you have any questions about any of this stuff so far?
Oh, no, you're teaching things that I teach. So I'm very aware of this.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so I don't know how far you're in the process of Lyme, but it does sound like you're having digestive issues. So I would still suggest some of this for sure. Okay, so there was a time most of my life where I couldn't really put on weight at all. I was what they called skinny fat, and I did not have, one, I didn't have a healthy lifestyle, and two, I couldn't get out of whatever this illness was. So when I was working with my Lyme specialist, I was already on the Gerson therapy as just a way to do a massive cleanse. I didn't know what I had. I just knew that it was taking me down far faster. So I did this liver detox, which is a coffee enema. It's the most effective, healthy way to eliminate toxins from the liver that then will help you to rebuild your liver. Because what you do is you do coffee enemas along with taking liver pills. And if you then drink cold fresh juice, you will literally be able to rebuild your liver. And anytime you're suffering from any illness that lasts, then you have a weak liver, and it's worth doing. probably for a lot shorter time than maybe other people who go and do cancer or have Lyme that's really taken a hold of them. But the reason I put this in here is if someone has Lyme, then they're going to be fighting this pretty hard at some point, and this is something to consider as a rebuild of the body. I did it for several years as part of my process, and I'm glad I did, because you can actually take a voltmeter and you can test your charges in your body. And most people don't think that that thing works, because when they test it, it always says 0. But it's not supposed to say 0. It's supposed to say -20. And when I started testing mine, they were at 0. I'm like, well, this doesn't work at all. But the work I did, I have very high charges now, because I went through a process a lot like this. I rebuilt my liver by taking liver pills and doing coffee enemas. I did a couple a day for a while, and I did one a day for a long while. It made me feel better, a lot better, especially when I had a lot of head pressure. And then the cold press fresh juice. Now, when you have Lyme, you don't want to cut out the protein all the way. And so I started doing a different kind of juice that helped me a lot. Instead of it being like apple and beet juice or some of the things that the Gerson diet has in it, I did cucumbers and apple and yellow bell peppers and celery. And it's actually a delicious drink. But just 1 or 2 of those a day, it's remarkable how much better I felt. And the only reason I quit doing it is that it just gets hard doing it as a long-term, lifelong commitment. But I did it for about 5 years, and it drastically changed the voltage that I could have in my own body. Something else that and I have it in here with Gerson, but my Lyme specialist actually taught me is the Gerson therapy had hot showers. Make sure you're taking super hot showers, hot as you can do. You get in there and you just inch it up like you're a boiling frog, and to where it's just almost a little miserable. And especially on the head, because so much of the bacteria lives inside the head. And then what you can do after you've got a really hot head is then go to completely cold. And that what it does is when it's really hot, it lets all the toxins out of the cells into the bloodstream, and it'll just slowly coalesce out of the cell and find its way into the bloodstream. And then when you hit it with the cold shower, then it starts to rush towards your liver and help you detox the cells more. Because if we had silver fillings, we had mercury. If we lived a lifestyle in America, there is toxins that need to go away. And so that's if we have a chronic illness, then we have a liver problem, and it's going to help to do some version of this. One thing that they discussed is 8 cups of vegetables, which is a huge amount of vegetables, but it changed the way I looked at diet. And once I started using that much vegetables in a day, I still have meat with every meal because that's a Lyme process, which we'll get into. But the 8 cups of vegetables really help to keep the diet because the other thing is you have to rebuild that digestive system, and the digestive system works much better with a lot of rubbish going through it. So with the Gerson therapy, they say 8 to 12 cups, which is I think a little ridiculous. That's why I put 8 cups. And the longer you can stick with that, like in the morning, I used to make oatmeal and apples every day, just so I could get 2 cups first thing in the morning, and that just helped wake my system up. The other thing is armor. It's something that's big on the Gerson list. Are you taking a thyroid? You're on mute.
I just take kelp, a supplement. Yeah.
Because a lot of people, because of you know, living the life we live in America, we end up having a thyroid that doesn't work very well. And so Armor is a natural, is a more natural version of taking thyroid. So most of the thyroid is synthetic, but this is just desiccated liver, or a desiccated thyroid, which now I actually take, I just make my own pills and I use a little bit of the Armor. But the Armor you can actually get on the Gerson website. And it's amazing how many people aren't on thyroid, but once they get on some, which you could diagnose yourself, you can buy Armor from the Gerson therapy website. And if you put yourself on just a little bit, you'd recognize how quickly it helps. And again, everything we're doing is about adding voltage, and the thyroid really does keep the voltage from, you know, from being its max. So the thyroid and the adrenals kind of regulate that, but it's amazing how weak the thyroid will get because for so long we've taken all of these products that keep our thyroid from firing well. Okay, so this is about the bugs, and we've already kind of talked about this. Low voltage is a low pH, and high voltage is a high pH. What happens when Lyme gets to us and starts to take hold of it is that it's this corkscrew bug. It can hide in cartilage, and it has that biofilm. So it's going to be with you and constantly reacting to sugars. So like, for instance, you know, you think you're doing fine, and you've done 2 or 3 rounds of antibiotic, and then you eat a little too much meat, and you have a couple pieces of pie or something like that, and then boom, it just explodes. And what's happened is you've knocked out most of the Lyme that were running around in the system, but you weren't able to get to all the ones that were hiding, and so they're able to come out. And so these are the things that my Lyme specialist helped me with, is that I started taking biocidin, which is a natural antibiotic. It's not one that does a full spectrum crush, kill everything in sight. It's one that really just hits these bad bugs and does a really good job. And it's a little expensive. And the sheet I'm going to give you at the end of this will have the website on it, but it is the #1 Borrelia killer. And it's one that you would take for a while, and then you would also take serapeptase with it, because that is I can't even remember. It's an enzyme. If you see it, see, I'll try to do it here. It's an enzyme that will eat that biofilm. And so those two together, the biocidin and the serapeptase, is the largest, was the largest change for me in getting a hold of this bug. And then the other things I had in here that she made sure I understood was that vitamin D was going to be necessary because none of us get enough sun, and it is absolutely hard to get the sun we need. At the time, I wasn't doing protein because I was in the middle of Gerson, and she demanded that I do protein with every meal, because and what was the purpose of it? Your body is fighting the bug, and it needs protein to beat the bug. And if you're really low on protein, then it has a hard time. It's another way that it's able to use energy. And so I was losing weight and was not healing fast enough because my protein was too low. And there's a couple of good ways of getting protein that's not so harmful as red meat or or whatever. One is bone broth. She had me eat a lot of bone broth, but for the collagen, the collagen, you can put powdered collagen in your drinks and get a fair amount of that. But when you drink bone broth, it's kind of like the difference between white sugar and a sugar that you're able to get from fruits. Bone broth has a wide range of other ingredients that you need, that your body needs to rebuild connective tissue, which ultimately the Lyme bug likes to eat most is connective tissue. Oh, that's why you need the protein. Protein with every meal is about connective tissue. That the Lyme will try to eat connective tissue in the body. And then she had me change from eating just any old butter to ghee, and that was a change that I never thought about making. That I just basically heat up my own butter, and then all the hold on, I'll think of the name. Anyway, there's a protein in milk that I'll come back to, but it drops out, and then you can pour out the butter. And ghee is an incredibly healing. Instead of just, and it's so easy to do as long as you just have normal organic butter and you heat it up so that the casein will drop out. Then it ends up being very healing for you. So that was what she taught me as far as how to deal with Lyme now that you have it. Both the Gerson, doing Gerson for a little while to get a stronger liver, and then to stay on these things for a while to beat the bug. Some other things that I can go through a little bit faster now, which is that I really believe in spring water. Spring water is a very quick way to keep the voltage in your body. When you break apart the structure of water, then it can't hold energy like structured water can. And just like, so we are part of the earth, and the earth makes things for us. One of the things earth makes for us is oil. The other thing that the earth makes for us is spring water. And all the ancients would put their cities near spring water, because water that bubbles out of the ground is to drink. Water that you have to pull out of the water is not yet ready to drink. And so having replaced all of my drinking water from fluoride tap water to spring water was really a huge success because of its ability to help me with my battery pack. The next thing is starting to understand grounding, and that we have a really hard time getting enough voltage because we don't connect to the ground. And a lot of people are starting to learn this. I learned it firsthand. I made my own healing sheet out of aluminum tape that I connected to a grounding rod, and I tested it for 2 months. I just slept on it at night, and it worked like a charm. So I ended up buying a grounding sheet, and I'm able to sleep 6 to 8 hours with a grounding sheet and rebuild a lot of those ions. So we take antioxidants all day long, and that's somewhat helpful. But when you sleep on a grounded mattress, you're absorbing antioxidants all night long. So a grounding sheet is an awesome way to start building energy. And there's a book called Ion Effect. It describes that really well. I have several books in here just to kind of get a better feel of some of this information. I also wear grounding footwear because I like getting as much grounding as I can. And I've discovered something called shungite pyramids. Shungite is the only mineral that we found that will produce negative ions without having to squeeze it. So when you have a crystal, the crystal isn't producing crap until you squeeze it. And that's why people started putting it in epoxy and making that, well, I can't think of that name either. Anyway, I'll come back to that one too. But this does, it produces massive amounts of negative ions without doing anything to it. You can just set it there. I have shungite pyramids all over the house. They're relatively cheap. Here, hold on, I gotta do it like this. I have tons of them. They're pretty cheap. They really do. They produce massive amounts of energy. They'll help you protect yourself from the electromagnetic fields of your computers, of your refrigerators, of your electric wire, of Wi-Fi, of 5G. When you're sleeping on a grounding sheet, you're protected from that electromagnetic charge because that energy field does protect you. But having a couple of these in your house really help as well. I actually built a cloud buster out in my backyard where my garden is by using shungite and pressed crystals that just make a plume of negative ions in my backyard for my garden. Okay, so that's my ion effect. So something I've learned in the last couple of years that really, oh, we lost her.
Let's see if she can get back in. She probably just lost her. She's driving. Looks like she lost her cell connection.
Cool.
Could be a battery that died too. I am really enjoying going through all this stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you.
I'm glad there's a framework for this information transfer to take place.
Yeah. Well, it's been nice. I hadn't actually put this into a format like this. These are all just different parts of the puzzle I used.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're back. Okay, so another thing that I learned a couple years ago that really kind of changed things pretty dramatically for me, and this is Jack Kruse's work. Jack Kruse was a brain specialist who operated on brains all day long, and he was sick. And he was giving a talk, and he fell off a stage that was only about 18 inches, and he broke his tibia. And he thought, well, God, I'm a brain surgeon. I'm horribly out of weight. What's going on? So he ended up reading a book called Healing is Light. And it talked about the differences of UV light. Oh, she ran away again. Anyway.
Well, so we can decide if she drops out to keep going and send her the copy, and she'll just have to figure out what she missed. What do you think?
Well, I'll give her a second longer, but yeah. I mean, there's only a bit longer, okay. But this last one was kind of a fun one. I'd like for anyone to.
Man, my work has taken me down this direction. There's a book called Brain Energy that I need to read, and it's studying. It's a look at mitochondria and how metabolism and mitochondria are contributing to mental health issues. And Absolutely. So this is something that I'm looking to get my head around. And I'm having right now, personally, I'm having such a debate with some mainstream fitness people, coaches that are telling me that I'm nuts because I think there's more to metabolism than just energy, caloric energy balance. And it's like, dude, that's such a myopic, mechanistic view of things. So this is what your research is really in alignment with what I'm coming up against professionally with people that don't understand. And I love what you say about the healing is voltage, because the way that I look at this all is that everything that we do or don't do is amplifying our vitality, amplifying our voltage, or dampening it down. And the way that I would correspond that even into metabolism, if you sleep like crap, your metabolic ability drops. If you're stressed, your metabolic ability drops. If you're not expressing your creativity or your spirituality, or you're not in good community, all that is it's a dialing back. It's a repression of your metabolic abilities. That's how I see it. And I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time articulating, because it's a sense of what I gained over the last 15 years of coaching people. I know it for myself, but I'm having a hard time finding research to back me up. And I'm being told by a lot of people that I'm a kook, you know? And so well, I appreciate your stuff.
Yeah, that's something that the kookness, the conspiracy theory language, that's something that makes you stronger. In other words, it's designed to make you stronger because you have to develop a thicker skin when describing all of this.
Well, what's beautiful is I've been losing sleep for the last 4 or 5 days, just mulling this over my head because some of the people that are disagreeing with me vehemently are good close friends that I've been in the fitness world with for a long time, and they're basically saying, Josh, you got to stop talking like this. You got to stop. This is and because of that pushback, because of that resistance, it's actually given me a language to be able to convey more deeply what it is that I see. And so I was like, I actually sent one of these guys a thank you, because your resistance has given me the opportunity to look and look deeper and look deeper. And I've now been able to create a language to articulate this that I didn't have before you started pushing back on me, which is grateful. So the same thing you're talking about here.
And you should get into Jack Cruz, because the interesting thing about him is he tells all of the nutritional folk to fuck off, because he's like, none of this has anything to do with nutrition. You can shove anything in your body. If you start to pay attention to mitochondria and you start to pay attention to light energy, you can change all of this around. And so his idea is that you have to be in the sun because the mitochondria feed off of sun energy. They're a bacteria that we stole and turned into the powerhouse of our cells. Most of mitochondria, like in other words, all cells have mitochondria, but nervous cells have 5 times more. They're loaded because most of your energy is being used down your spinal column. And so any cells that are used in the nervous system are just loaded with mitochondria, and mitochondria work off of light. They turn light into fuel. So they can turn protein, they can turn sugar into fuel, but the best thing they do is take DHA and turn it into fuels. Okay, and the best way to get DHA is through oysters, grass-fed organs, or really high-grade eggs. And in fact, oysters, so everything we eat, even a cucumber is going to have some DHA in it. And a cucumber that is organically grown, so that you could test it and put 2 ends of your meter together and find that it amp is -20, because you couldn't do that. Conventionally grown food will not have a -20 amp, but organically grown cucumber will. Well, the same thing with oysters. They're a battery, and they suck up massive amounts of light energy right there at the beach, and then they turn that into DHA, which you can absorb, and you can shift. You can shift a chronic illness faster than anything with oysters, because they have so much power to them, because it's just pure DHA. And so just like when we talk about ions, so when I'm walking around grounding at my house, I'm getting maybe 100 negative ions at a time. When I'm at a stream, then maybe that bumps up to 500 ions at a time. Okay, when I go to a waterfall, that will suddenly be 1,000 to 5,000. When I go to the beach, it's like 10,000 to 100,000. It's the same with oysters. They're the highest end of that DHA. Now, the other thing that's interesting, the reason I like hot and cold showers is that it resets the mitochondria. It flushes out the salt from the cells. Well, with oxygen therapy, you can increase the power of the mitochondria, because mitochondria fire better with an oxygen environment. In fact, if you ever talk to anyone who's talking about mitochondria, they'll always preface it with, within an oxygen environment, they fire well. They have a closer spark gap. When you take cold showers, you reduce that spark gap, and when you use oxygen therapy, you reduce that spark gap. So they'll fire much more quickly. And oxygen therapy is 35% hydrogen peroxide that you put in distilled water, take it a couple times.
Yeah, the 2 minute, what is it, the 2 minute miracle? Is that what the book is
1
called?
minute.
I did it. Yeah, the 1 minute miracle. I did that for a long time. I haven't done it. I did it all through 2000, all through COVID. I did that. I actually started, I think, before COVID hit. but I kept doing it during COVID.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I still do it. I still do it 2 or 3 times a week. I'll take a pretty strong dosage before bed. My wife's doing it pretty hard right now because she finally got it up enough to realize that, oh, this is working, you know. And then so the other thing that really helps with this whole theory is having the right kind of salt. That there are bad salts, there are good salts. This Premier pink salt that you can buy from Premier Labs is an incredible salt. It's the only salt that anyone that I work with says to use because it's so high in minerals that it'll actually do its job instead of silting you up. And then so UVB during the day and no blue light at night. And then with Lyme, I use IR therapy, which is, I mean, it's really just a heating pad, but you can get ones that have more IR. And I would use that on the back of my neck because it hurt a lot. But this is all kind of Jack Cruz's stuff. He's like, this stuff has more to do. If you can get light during the day when you're supposed to get light, if you can balance, you know, your hormones by allowing your brain to know when it's getting the right kind of light, by not using, like when you wear glasses, when you're inside, you're not getting any UV. You have to be outside and grounded. If you're outside and grounded, you're building, you're taking in UV B, which is going to help you grow energy because your mitochondria use sunlight like crazy. And then I think we're getting, so, and a lot of people already know this, but this is a big part of this is you got to get rid of all your seed oils. And the other thing is that's crazy that people don't want to talk about, that's actually big in your community, is seed milks. Almond milk is disastrous. Don't do it. It's got 1,000 times more omega-6, which is the acidic version.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we switched over to tallow, bone broth, organ meat, ghee, all those things, because what's happening with all of us, and this has more to do. This is the best part of nutrition there is. Doesn't matter what kind of nutrition you're taking in. If you're not allowing your body to get healthy dosages of all these animal fats, then you're not able to build the proper hormones, because all hormones are built off of animal-based fat, right?
So just an aside, I've been seeing an acupuncturist for anal fissure that I think I talked to you about this before. I started seeing her in February, and ghee is one of her recommendations. It's like, you need to be using ghee, and she and all of her work, she's looking at the liver, constantly looking at the liver. What's the how powerful and how vital is your liver? So
Yes.
what you're presenting here is really a validation of, you know, this Tibetan Chinese medicine that she's working to heal me through. And I've been going with this anal fissure issue for 3 years, and I am 99% healed from seeing this woman since February.
Very good. Very good.
And I'm gonna apply a lot of the stuff that you're covering here.
Good. Yeah, and then the last bit of it was what these are just afterthoughts, but I really believe in fermented food. I really believe that that's a great way to get the healthy bacteria rebuilt, because
I got
we've all
sauerkraut in
got
my
a
fridge.
problem with bad bacteria.
Yep.
I used bee venom during the Lyme process because I had a lot of aches that helped. Like anytime you have a really stiff joint, man, bee venom is incredible. And then, you know, and these two things we both believe in. Replace the tele-lie vision with growing food and cooking food, right? And then I threw this in for you. Muscle movement creates native ions. That's the only bit of movement I have in here, because I don't really do it much. And I think that a sick body doesn't need a lot of it, but probably as you heal, then you can do more of it, you know?
Well, my philosophy is that there are, and I have a different lens through which I speak to people, but essentially I'm saying the same thing, is that the way I would look at it is that I call it energy, and I like what you said. Instead of energy, it was voltage. And is that voltage? It's interchangeable. But
Yeah.
the better quality of sleep is, the better quality our food is, the better quality our relationships are, the better quality our relaxation response is, the better quality our respiration is. All of that amplifies our energy, amplifies our voltage, and that is I look at it as an energetic flywheel or a voltage flywheel. And the more we do of these things, the more energized we become and the healthier we become by default. And so I don't have the greatest scientific grasp in the world about these different authors that talk about these things. What I have is an experience of 15 years working with people in the health and wellness field, my own self, and an intuition for what I see happening in people's lives. And you have done more research than I have in how to articulate these things, and that I'm arguing with trainers right now that they say a gram of sugar is the same as a gram of broccoli, and like it's like the difference in how that affects the body. Like you just said, sugar is shit. Sugar makes the body metabolically destroys the body. Now, can I cite studies on why that is? No. But I know there are tons of studies out there, and I know whenever I feel sugar in my own body, I can feel it disrupting my energy. I can feel it disrupting my vitality. But I need a better framework and context for being able to articulate this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I hope that helps, because it is some of the best research out there on a different, because that's this is the thing. It's a different way of looking at what is going on with the body. And what because I ran through 10 years of just trying everything, and then I finally realized, oh, there's some people that have honed in on this oneness. There's this one therapy, that it works for all of us, that we have the same body, instead of it being, oh, well, this is what you do for Lyme, and this is what you do for, and so that's what I really tried to build this from, is finding all these people that really see it as there being one thing that's gone wrong. And so, and because everything you're doing is just adding more energy to your battery. But if you lose the ability to hold charge, then that's what causes every autoimmune disease. So,
yep, and that resonates with my understanding. You just articulate in a different way, and it's a validation of my work, and it's a validation of my philosophy. And thanks, I appreciate that. So if we're good, I'm gonna let this thing render, and I'll upload it to YouTube. I'll send you the link. I'll send a link to Liz, and then we'll see what Liz does with it. I'm gonna take it and apply a few things myself. And I appreciate you tremendously, Aaron. I really do.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll send you a copy of the outline.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. All right, we will talk with you again soon.
All right, man.
Thanks for your time and your gift.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.